Hey guys, what's up? My name's Jennifer. I'm a former flight attendant turned travel agency owner of my very own travel agency, Pine to Palm Travel. Today I am coming to you from London, hence my setup is a little bit different. We are going to be watching another Glitter and Lasers adventure video, and she is going to Disney World, so this will be very interesting. But everyone is talking about Disney and Disney being plus size friendly, so I thought we would take a look at it and I would give my perspective. I live right by Disney World, go there quite often when I'm home. I'm there usually weekly, sometimes multiple times a week. And I also sell Disney and all my travel agents sell Disney. So we're very familiar with Disney. I thought it'd be fun to have our perspective on it. Again, I'm going in blind. I have not watched this yet, so we'll kind of see how it goes and what she gets into and why so many people are talking about it. Everyone keeps bringing up her going to Disney, and now all of the plus size influencers want to go to Disney. So let's see what she says about it. I actually had a funny comment on one of my last videos. It said that we had very good audio, which is funny because I'm having audio issues right now, but I was talking too much over the video. These types of videos are reaction slash commentary videos. I will be talking the entire time. If you guys want to watch a video without me jabbering over it, go ahead, check the description down below. The videos are always linked there. You can go watch them and support the creators on their channel. But fair warning, I will be talking the entire time during this video. Let's go ahead and start.
So y'all know I love Disney. And as a result, one of the questions I get all of the time is Disney plus size friendly? Is Disney accessible? What rides can I ride at Disney? And it really got me thinking a lot about how we make this channel useful. And what ended up happening is I was like, you know what? I want to help you know if the adventure you're about to get yourself into is something you're going to be able to do successfully.
It's kind of funny because she's literally doing like a travel agent's job. And I guess as an influencer in the travel space, if she's getting asked about Disney a lot, then she's obviously going to want to do videos on it. Usually it's not a question of whether or not Disney is accessible. It's more of how can you implement it into your itinerary to make it the best experience possible. So it's a little bit different than what she's saying. Essentially, we're on the same page.
So John and I sat down and
Like
we
she's
came
wearing
up
her
with like
Mickey
a
ears.
scale of a way for us to kind of rate different things about an activity, say for example, going to Disney, so you can better be informed when planning your next adventure. So we're going to actually introduce that to you today, and we would love all of the feedback you can give us because, again, this is our first shot. We may not have gotten it right. In fact, I'm fairly confident we didn't get it right because very rarely does anyone get anything perfect the first time.
I feel like she might be recording this intro after the fact just because she is kind of being like negative. She already knows that they didn't get it right. So she's open to feedback. That's kind of my take on it. It's a little odd. It has nothing to do with the travel, but it comes across as a little odd, but at least they're open for feedback, I guess. But it is a fair point because Disney is one of those things that people are very, very passionate about. If you get something wrong with Disney, guarantee that there's going to be someone there to correct you. Maybe that's also why she's putting that little disclaimer in there.
So we're going to introduce you to
Okay.
what we call
Spilling
spilling
the
all
travel
of the
tea.
travel tea. T stands for terrain. How is the path? Is it clear? Does it have cobblestones? Are there scrambles? Is there any change in altitude? Is there hills, stairs, other things that get in your way that you have to like overcome in regards to the terrain? Ease stands for ease of participation. So this is going to include things like climate. Is it super hot? Is it super humid? But also things like, is there places to sit down and take a break? Is there food and water nearby? Is there restrooms? Is there shade or is it full sun the whole time? Can I step inside and get some air conditioning somewhere? Also with that will be things like pace. How fast does this adventure go? And then also physical. Do I need any extra physicality to do? So how easy is it for me to participate in this specific activity? Last is accessibility. We're gonna be looking at things like, is it wheelchair accessible? Are there things that are, or boundaries that would prevent it from being accessible to some group of people?
I really hope that she is traveling with someone that is in a wheelchair to help make that determination because something might not appear to be wheelchair accessible, but they have different ways of taking that person through the ride, different elevators, different lifts that they can take. So I hope she is. This will be interesting. I like how she's kind of like breaking it down. I'm really curious of what her take is on everything.
Is it size inclusive? Can you ride the rides? Can you fit the harnesses? Is it comfortable for someone in a bigger body? We'll also look at things like weight requirements. And if there are stairs, are there ramps? And are there vehicles or support for people who might need a wheelchair in park or may choose to use a wheelchair? So I said in part because we're talking about Disney today, but that's our new scale. Again, spilling all the tea on travel. And I thought for a first video that because I literally just went, that Disney made the most obvious option. And this way, I'm not telling you whether it works for you or not because I really don't like that. I really don't like telling anyone what they are and are not capable of because lots of people have thought I'm capable of far less than I actually am.
I really like that. And I really like that she is stating that fact. That is one thing as a travel agent we always need to be aware of, just because something might seem to us that be too much for that person or that they should be capable of doing that. It's not always the case. And you really need to be in tune with your clients and know what they want out of their trip, what their boundaries are. I can't, like, she always is saying these really great things about travel. So I'm saying that because there were some criticisms over this video, but this is great so far. And I'm really excited for this like new series that she's gonna do, rating these different experiences, and then we can talk about them. I really like it. And we'll see if anything changes. I really do enjoy this kind of content from her.
Instead, I want to empower you with the information you need to make the decision that's best for you. We're going to rate these on a scale from 0 to 5 stars, 5 stars being, oh my gosh, it met all the criteria, no matter what, this is going to work, to 1 star being, please avoid at all costs, you may get hurt, even if you are the most physically active and together person. So let's get to spilling all the tea on Disney travel. So first, let's start with terrain. Disney is immaculately good at this. All of the roads are fairly smooth. All of the locations have entries for wheelchairs. There are no obstacles you're really going to have to come across. Aside from a few hills and most of them in Animal Kingdom Park, most of the parks are fairly flat and easy to maneuver. However, when we talk about ease of participation, it's a little bit of a different story. Going to Disney, it really depends on what time of year you go. But during the most popular times, which happen to be the summer months,
The most popular times, not only the summer months, but it's when the typical school vacation, school breaks are going on. So it's going to be holidays, it's really busy. And then also for spring break, it's going to be busier. So not just during the summer. So just be aware of that. There are other times that it's busy.
Disney is hot as hell. And it can feel like hell, literally, because 95 degrees and 85% humidity is a lot on the human body. So I would
This is a fair point for her to bring up and all of that, but it just is so funny to me that people always, especially when they're doing commentary about Disney, always talk about how hot it is. You are going to Florida. It is hot in Florida. It is called the Sunshine State for a reason. It's just funny like how big of a deal people make it. What else would you expect? So you do need to be prepared for heat and sunshine.
say, in general, Disney is an awesome place to travel if it's not unbearably hot. So one thing you might want to consider when planning a trip is if you don't do well with heat, think about that because it's going to significantly affect your ease of participation and also just your ability to like keep going. Like I need a nap on the hot days, guys. I go back to my hotel room with the delicious AC and I cool down. I also know lots of fun places to get AC at Disney. So one caveat to that temperature is there are lots of air-conditioned places you can kind of step off for a little bit, cool down, and then come back from. My personal favorite place to get AC is the China Pavilion in Epcot. It is ice cold. There are benches, and it's relatively quiet. So it's a nice, like, take a chill break spot.
One thing that Floridians do believe in is air conditioned. So you will be finding buildings. If you go into any kind of shop or anything, you're going to get blasted with that cool air and be able to cool down. There is no lack of air conditioning when you're within buildings. But again, you need to be prepared for the heat, especially if you're going during a Florida summer. I would also say that one thing too is when you're getting into September, October, it can still be pretty hot. I mean, I was in our pool in Florida during Christmas, if that gives you any indicator of like how warm it can still be, but it also can get pretty chilly in Florida standards, being in the 40s, 50s. It feels cold. So when you're also out there during the winter, don't be expecting to not need some sort of sweatshirt. You really need to be prepared for weather conditions. It rains a lot. Just need to be prepared, which is why a packing list for Disney is so essential. If you guys need a packing list, go ahead and check the description down below. We have our free Disney packing list that you guys can enjoy and use on your next trip. Okay, let's continue.
Within the park while recouping and getting your temperature back. But to be honest, as soon as you step back outside, it's still unbearably hot. Also, one thing to think about with that is there are a lot of parts of the park that are shaded. So you can also, if you don't have time to go in the AC or you're trying to walk through, you can try to avoid direct sunlight.
There are sometimes lack of umbrellas, and I actually mentioned this to a cast member one time asking, what's up, why aren't there more umbrellas out here? And they actually told me that there was a shortage of umbrellas. It was like something to do with the pandemic and like ordering umbrellas, there weren't enough. So when you're standing in lines for certain rides, this was specifically in Hollywood Studios, which for some reason I noticed that I get very overheated in and Animal Kingdom, but you can find shade. I feel like easier in Animal Kingdom. It just depends. The cast member did mention that there was a shortage of umbrellas because they couldn't order them. There was something with the pandemic. That was a year ago, probably. I still haven't seen an increase in umbrellas, so not sure if that's actually what was going on. If you do find shade, you're going to find people in it. So just be aware of that. Great places to dip in, restaurants and shops, in my opinion, if you need a quick cool down.
Another alternative that's like a complete change of plans, if you want somewhere that's a little bit milder temperature all year round, try Disneyland. Being in California, it's got a little bit more of a consistent temperature and humidity, so it's better to plan for. Well, Disney World's weather can be pretty erratic and can be really, really hot and really, really humid and even rain at a drop's notice.
But they're also very different parks. So if you're wanting the Disney World experience, I would not let the weather hold you back at all. You just need to be fully prepared and planned to handle the weather. I would hate for someone to not get the experience that Disney World can offer them just because of the weather, especially if you're a true Disney fanatic.
And it's really what you make of it. Some people are power walking ride to ride, and some people are leisurely strolling. Like I said, there's lots of places to sit down and relax. There's nice snacks and there's water pretty much everywhere, but it does come with a cost. You can also bring your water bottle, and there is like water bottle refueling stations throughout the park. So if you don't want to buy water, that's okay. You can just bring your own water bottle and refill there. I end up just buying water because I forget, to be honest. I just forget to bring my own bottle.
The other thing with this is there are water bottle refueling stations. You can also ask anywhere that you get food or snacks for a cup of water, cup of ice, and they will give it to you. So if you need water, just ask. That is another option. If you can't find a refueling station where you are, just head over to one of the stands and ask for a cup of water.
And then it gets exciting. Why is buying water at a theme park exciting? I don't know. I guess I'm just that girl.
This is kind of like a theme that I'm seeing with her is her preparedness isn't at where I would love her to be when she goes into this, which is okay because maybe it's a better representation of the average person. But if she were my client, I would make sure that she had lists and was prepared, packed everything, let her know that I don't know if she knows that she can just go up to any stand and get a cup of water if she needs it, so she wouldn't have to buy it. But there are just little things that I'm noticing her not being fully prepared as what a travel agent could prepare her for. It could be very small things that really enhance her experience, especially not having to go buy water every couple hours.
Just the girl who buys the water at the park. There really are places to sit everywhere. I used to joke with everyone that my favorite ride at Disney was bench and that my second favorite ride was bathroom.
What?
Because they're literally everywhere, and I probably ride those two rides the most. But
That makes me a little sad. Like, there's so much to Disney that you can love, but it is really funny. But also, that shouldn't be the most time that you spend. But sometimes just being in the atmosphere is really fun too. So I'm getting a little bit of a feeling that she's not a huge fan of Disney. That's just my vibe that I'm getting.
Speaking of physicality, I should note that I have never gone into a Disney park and walked less than 5 miles. Even when I was not seeing the whole park, just going to part of the park, only going for part of the day.
I have gone where I've walked very little, but again, I'm a local, so I have an annual pass. I pop in, get my favorite snack, take some pictures of something, and then pop out. So I've definitely done it less than 5 miles. But as someone that would be traveling to Disney and paying for as a vacation, that is probably true. You will probably get easily 3 to 5 miles in.
I've never successfully made it out of the park with less than 5 miles on my Apple Watch. And this is for a lot of reasons. First, getting from how you arrive at the park to the actual inside of the park is a bit of a distance. Additionally, if you're staying on property, all of the hotels have a fairly long walk to the bus. Well, some people would say it's short, but I think it's pretty long when I'm exhausted at the end of the day. Just factor that in, that there is quite a bit of walking from the car to the.
Again, that really depends on where your room is, where you're staying on property. There are many different options, not just a bus. For example, you can do the Skyline or you can do the friendship boats. There's a lot of different options. So, again, a little bit of that preparedness and where you want your room. Okay, guys, I just had to switch out my battery. So, I apologize if the angle is a little bit different. I had to redo my whole set. You're sitting on a whole pile of books right now. Very interesting setup I have. Sorry about that. So, she's talking about the distance between getting from the hotel to the park. It can be a bit of a walk and take some time for you to get into the actual part, even if you're staying on property. But preparation for this can go a long way. And if this is something that is important to you in your trip, and if being a little bit closer to the pickup and drop off place where you're going to go in and out of the park, or take the transportation in and out of the park, is going to make your trip a little bit better, a little bit easier, those are things that a travel agent can help you with, or as you're booking, you need to be thinking about. Preparation could really help just tweak her experience just a little bit to make it a little bit more magical.
Front of the park, and from the park to wherever they drop you off to your hotel room. If walking is a concern for you, there are electric wheelchairs that you can rent once you arrive in the park, but they do go pretty quickly.
So there are rentals that you can get in the park, but there are also separate companies that will deliver and then pick up to your hotel room. You don't even have to worry about trying to get into the park to get one of those rentals. I highly recommend doing that. We always set that up for clients that need it. It's so nice because once you get to your hotel, they deliver the wheelchair there for you. Sometimes they'll deliver like other stuff. We had like they brought water for a client one time, like cases of water, which was really cool. But there are many different services to make it as easy as possible. Again, it just comes into that preparation process and maybe bringing in the help of a travel professional if these are things that you will need on your vacation.
On average, for me, a normal day at the park is 8 to 10 miles walking. So keep that in mind when you're planning. If that number sounds outrageous to you and you can't fathom.
I feel like I've done rope drop from open to close down the parks, even doing reservations like after the park, because sometimes you can stay a little bit later and the park's already closed. And I feel like I still don't get 10 miles in. And it's like hardcore walking. I've also done very leisurely, like I've told you. I think maybe she hit 10 miles in her entire day. She's going all the way back to her hotel room and then coming all the way back to the parks once or twice during her day. Maybe that's why she's getting it so high, but I feel like that's just like slightly high.
Doing that and you feel like you're going to need support, we'll talk about that in this next section, which is accessibility. Disney is extremely wheelchair friendly. I know I've already said this in the beginning of this video, but they go above and beyond. Almost all the rides have special entryways for wheelchairs. All the staff are trained on how to guide you.
Again, I feel like that's kind of known.
Minimal walking. If you need help transferring from the chair to the ride and from the ride back into the chair, you can literally go with no walking. I personally went in an electric wheelchair when I had a busted foot and I had, really minimal walking I could do, and I had an amazing experience. You do not get to magically cut the ride. That is a myth. I want to shut that down now because I feel like it leads to people putting actual people who need wheelchairs at a disadvantage by demanding special treatment. You will probably still have to wait in line. It might be a slightly different line because you have a wheelchair, but it's not like a magical fast pass to the front. That is not true. That is a rumor. That is not truth. What I will say, and I mentioned it just slightly before, is that there are wheelchairs in parks. So if you get exhausted and you need to get one,
So, what can be done is if you are in a wheelchair or have some sort of disability that might prevent you from having to stay in line, you actually go on the app and pick rides at certain times. So, when you show up to the ride at that time, you can go up into the line in the lightning lane. It's still technically like it puts you in line, but you don't have to physically be standing there in line. And some people can't physically be there in the line. I know some people who are diabetic that also are able to take advantage of this because it is not always great for them to be standing in line in the heat, maybe dehydrating, blood sugars dropping, that kind of thing. Definitely take advantage of that. It's not cutting in line, but you get to show up at a specific time. You do have to do some couple extra steps ahead of time to be able to get that ability, but it is definitely worth it for someone who is not able to physically be in the line for long periods of time. That is something I would recommend families that have kids that have autism as well. It's a really great option for them because they don't have to be standing in line. They can be going and doing different things in the park and then showing up at the ride at that specific time. So it's not cutting line, but there are different ways that you can go about it where you're not having to stand there and wait the entire time because some people physically cannot do that, which is fine. That's why Disney is so accessible.
you might be able to get one. And I say might because on a busy day, they go fast. So what I did instead, and it worked really great for me, and honestly was only about $150 for the whole week, was just to rent one from a local vendor. It was available at my hotel when I arrived. I literally rode it on all the transportation to the parks,
Literally what
the
I said to do.
monorails, the boats,
Perfect.
the Skyliner, every single one of them works seamlessly with a wheelchair. So you can literally just take your wheelchair from your hotel to the park. That way you're guaranteed you have one. If you decide you want to go without it one day, you can leave it at the hotel and then you can come back and get it if you need it. I just think it gives you a lot more flexibility.
I would say that if you are someone who maybe wouldn't want to bring it or you might not need it, I would just bring it because it is a lot of walking. It is a lot more physical than maybe someone would anticipate. And then having to go all the way back to your room to get your electric wheelchair, I would just bring it. If you're gonna rent it, just bring it. There's other people in them. Like she's saying, it's so accessible. You shouldn't have any issues at all. Don't be hesitant to use it in the park and getting to the park.
Also with the wheelchairs and along with the strollers in case you're pushing kids and just want something to hold on to give you balance after your body starts to deteriorate from too much walking. They can't leave the park they're in. So if you're park hopping, that can get real messy real fast. Again, if you have your own, then you can take your wheelchair from park to park to park to park. But if you're in, like, let's say Magic Kingdom and you want to hop over to Hollywood Studios
Very
or
good
Epcot,
advice.
you're going to have to get a new wheelchair at that new location and hope that there's still one there for you to get. So we just covered that the park is super accessible for people who are in a wheelchair, but what about those of us with bigger bodies? Now, I would say the park is about 90% there. Most of the rides, I would say literally 90% of the rides, are plus size friendly to an extreme. No discomfort, long seat belts, big seats. You maybe have some hitting on the sides if you're bigger hipped, but really great in terms of accessibility. Also, I would say that the cast members there are trained on how to deal with situations with larger travelers. So they're not going to like shove four people in next to you. For example, when I ride Rise of the Resistance, I usually don't have a fourth person in the car. And that's just for my comfort. I don't want to disturb that person. And I've never had to ask for it. It's just something that the Disney cast members have done seamlessly. And I think that is a really important part of being plus size accessible is making sure that a person can just enjoy their day and doesn't feel called out or like they're having a unique experience because of it.
That's interesting. I would say don't count on that happening though, because I have been put in situations where we're squeezing in. Specifically, one that sticks out that it happens quite a bit is Test Track. I wouldn't count on them like leaving you extra space. It just depends, I think, on the person conducting the ride. So
It's all very quiet and very discreet and nothing is ever said to you. And I think
I like this
that's
blue
just,
outfit she's
it's
got
just
on.
really well
It's
done.
cute.
There are some rides that don't work for bigger bodies. Mine Train comes to mind, Flight of Passage, Entron for people with larger calves. I had problems with Garden of the Galaxy because I have such wide hips. Now I know a lot of other people rode it and were fine with it. What I will say is there is no definitive guide of whether your body will fit this ride. And I've seen a lot of people do reviews of the parks and declare certain rides plus size friendly and then not be able to ride that, aka Guardians of the Galaxy for me, which sucked. It was not a great experience. What I will say is this. All of that research is a really great basic understanding of the ride. You will not know 100% sure on those specific, more challenging to bigger body rides until you try. So it's really up to you whether you try or not. I've seen people my size get on Flight of Passage because they have smaller calves. And obviously, I've seen people bigger than me who hold their weight up higher ride Guardians of the Galaxy. It just really depends on how your body's distributed.
It's more like the rides where it's individually seated instead of everyone kind of being in one like long bench or row together. I think those are the types of rides that someone might have a harder time with because it's more restrictive to just your single seat. I'm trying to think of Guardians of the Galaxy how it is. For some reason I can't. I'm just so excited when I go on the ride that I don't pay attention to what it is. There are some that for me, even being a mid-sized person, it feels like a tight squeeze. So it really depends, but it's the rides that are like more built for like an individual seating that I think people would have a harder time with. So you can kind of see, I think in front of almost every single ride, there's a model of what the seating looks like or what like one of the cars would look like that you're going to be in. So take a look at those. It's really good advice. Have a basic understanding of what maybe you could and couldn't ride. Manage your expectations will be key. If she went into wanting to ride Guardians of the Galaxy and then wasn't able to, that would be very disappointing for anyone, whatever the reason was. I think it's a great thing to do your research and then manage your expectations for the park based on that.
That said, Pammy Parks does amazing reviews on each of the rides. And while you can't be certain for sure her review of it being plus size friendly or not is going to be accurate for your body, you can at least understand how the ride works and make a better judgment about whether it'll work for you. That's my only caveat, because I think for me it was really heartbreaking when I read, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy works for plus size bodies, works for everybody, and then it didn't work for me. And I felt even shittier, for lack of a better word, because I felt like now I was not even in the plus size community. I was like in some other world. And
it literally can apply to anything. Just doing your research ahead of time. It's not always necessarily going to be the exact thing that you researched for whatever it is. Even if you're researching restaurants, it might not exactly be the experience that you research, but you have a general idea of what something is going to be like. And that just really, really helps manage expectations. That's why I think research is so important before you go on a trip.
I don't want to do that to you. I think that bodies are weird, and bodies are, and I say weird as in like not a negative thing. We're just different. We're all different. And you're really not going to know what works for your body until you put it in that situation. So make your choices wisely about that and go with someone you love who can support you if it doesn't work out. When I couldn't ride Guardians of the Galaxy, it was embarrassing and I didn't feel great about it. But the cast members were super discreet about it. There was no like, hey, this girl can't fit. It was just very like, hey, you want to get up and go out? I just acted like I was scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Which was a great, great cover up, or a terrible one. I don't know. I can't read everybody's minds around me. And I had a really good friend with me, and she was like, we just went on with the park the rest of the day as if it were normal. We didn't focus on that moment. So I say, if you are nervous about fitting a ride, just make sure whoever you're going up to that ride with is someone you feel really comfortable with who can support you if it doesn't work out. Like I said,
it's kind of interesting. It brings up a little bit of a debate in my head. What I was just thinking, that supportive friend, like them being able to stay on the ride and enjoy the ride for themselves, or do you get off and support the person you're with? I think family, like she was with a friend, which probably made that easier, but like a family dynamic might not be so lenient. I could see certain family members like letting the person go and then the rest of them join. So just know your situation too. I'd be curious, like, what do you guys think? Does that person ride? Or do they get off with their friend or family member and not ride also? It's just a little debate in my head that I was thinking of. Oh, you want to experience it, but also you need to be supportive and get off. So that's just interesting thought I had.
90% of the rides are perfectly fine. And the rides that tend to be more challenging are the more thrill rides. So if you're looking for a category to exclude, anything that's super thrill ride may be the issue. But again, it's not a blanket statement because Thunder Mountain, that's fine. Works perfectly fine. Everest, that's fine. And those are technically thrills. So check out Pammy Parks and also just be prepared to take it on the chin if something doesn't work out and make sure it's worth your mental sanity to fight for it. That's it. So if I had to rank all of this according to the T,
Here we go, the rankings.
I would say terrain is Pretty much a 5 out of 5. It is super easy to get around and is really designed for accessibility. The ease of participation. I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. People come back from Disney exhausted for a reason. And I think going into this experience, not realizing that is how a lot of people have bad Disney trips.
I agree with the first ranking. The second one I would kind of agree with. Also, just like the fatigue from standing in lines all day. It doesn't even necessarily need to be physical, you're walking a lot. Like physically standing in line is mentally and physically exhausting too sometimes. So doing that for multiple hours a day can make it a little bit tougher too.
So if it feels overwhelming, just plan ahead and get a wheelchair. Then that bumps you up to like 5 out of 5 because it removes a lot of that stress that you have from all of the walking and all of the strenuous activity in the sun. Last, we have the accessibility. I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. Disney does a great job at being accessible to both people in wheelchairs and people in bigger bodies.
Maybe 4 out of 5 is fair, but also they might deserve like a 5 out of 5. Just thinking about all the places that I've traveled to in the world and how Disney does their theme parks, they're pretty good. They're really good. And I think about some of the other vacations I've been on where it would be, they're just not as accessible as they should be or really want them to be. I just think Disney does it pretty well. If there's anything that comes to your guys' mind that is maybe better than Disney or on par with Disney, I'd be interested to know too. I would give a 5.
But there's still some rides we can't fit. Now, I don't know if that's things that could have been changed with the design or not, but it's something to keep in mind that is an obstacle. Not every single ride is going to fit.
I mean, though, it's like it's a ride. You have to make it also like the thing is too is if you're too little for the ride, you also can't ride. So it's not just it's for safety. It's not just excluding plus size people. There are kids that are too short, too small that cannot ride these rides either. It's both ends. It's for safety at the end of the day. So just keep that in mind too. It's not specifically exclude anybody. It's put into place for a reason.
That said, comparing a Disney park to like a Universal park, you will be able to ride a considerable amount more of rides at Disney than you would ever be able to ride at those. For the most part, for an amusement park, they're probably a 5 out of 5. But for a general score about everything, that they're like a 4 out of 5.
Universal and Disney get compared a lot. They are actually completely different types of parks. One is a theme park, which is Disney, and one is technically an amusement park, which has more focus on rides and like the thrill of everything, and that would be Universal. So they're really built for different audiences. Comparing them is not great. I would compare it to another theme park then if you're going to make a fair comparison. And I love Universal, so I'm very protective of Universal. I agree, like 4 out of 5. It's hard for something to be perfect. I would be curious to see if she could find what would be a 5 out of 5 because it's really going to be hard if you're judging accessibility and the inclusiveness of a theme park or a vacation experience as much as Disney is. I mean, even when you go out to eat in Disney, every time the waiter or waitress will ask if there's any allergies. Like that is really, really top tier type of consideration and service. I would just be curious if she could find something better than Disney as far as these categories go.
They're like a 4 out of 5. I hope that gives you more insight when you're planning your Disney trip on what may or may not work for you, what to plan ahead for, and what to be prepared for emotionally. I hope it helps you decide whether a Disney trip is right for you, and if so, how you want to enjoy that trip, whether it be walking or using a mix of walking and a scooter or just a scooter by itself. However you want to go, I hope you feel more informed and more prepared to visit the House of Mouse.
That wraps it up. It's kind of funny that so many people are talking about this video. Maybe because she is so popular on our other channel with over 1 million followers that people are watching this. I think she made some really, really good points. For me, the biggest take out of this for you guys would be you need to be prepared when you're planning a Disney vacation. You need to manage expectations no matter what level you are at. And even helping your family and children manage those expectations can be a really important thing as well because you never know when a certain ride is going to be broken down and you maybe maybe will not be able to ride it during your time, which is tragic, but I've seen it happen. Focusing more on the experience instead of what you're actually doing at the parks would be something that would be good for your family or friends that are traveling. That wraps it up for this video. It's been funny because there's been people critiquing her videos. I really like what she said about it, and I think it's important that she is actually going to these places and giving her own opinion, being someone who is plus size and can really speak to that community. So well done, Anna, with that. Again, video is going to be linked in the description below. You guys have a video that you want me to watch and review, or a specific destination that I could find a video on, please let me know and I will do that, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.